somewhere in the world right now, a young person is staring at the ceiling at night, not because they are tired, but because they're asking a question that feels heavier every year. What am I supposed to do with my life? It's a strange feeling, because on paper, everything looks fine. They went to school, they followed the rules, they listened to the advice of adults who promised that if they stayed on the right path, things would eventually make sense. Study first, career later, security before passion. And for many years, that advice feels reasonable, but something else quietly happens in the background, before all the responsibilities, before the expectations, before the pressure to be realistic. Most people had something that made them feel alive, something that made time disappear. For some people, it was art. For others, it was sports. For others, it was competition. The thrill of getting better at something, winning, improving, mastering a skill that most people didn't understand. But sometimes those passions don't look like traditional careers, and when they don't fit the standard path, they're often dismissed. You can do that later. Focus on school first. That's not a real future. And so the passion gets postponed, not abandoned, just postponed, first until the end of school, then until the end of university, then until life becomes more stable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you postpone something long enough, sometimes it disappears, not because you stopped loving it, but because the part of you that once burned with curiosity slowly learns to stay quiet. Psychologically, this creates a conflict inside the mind. On one side, there is the life you were told to build, a safe life, a responsible life, a predictable life. And on the other side, there is a quieter voice asking, but is this really what I wanted? And when that question appears, many people feel something they don't know how to explain. It feels like emptiness, not sadness exactly, not failure either, just directionless. You followed the map, but somehow you arrive somewhere that doesn't feel like home. Philosophers have spoken about this for centuries. The danger of living a life designed entirely by other people's expectations. Because purpose cannot be assigned like homework. It cannot be forced through obligation. Purpose is usually discovered through exploration, through curiosity, through things that look pointless to everyone else but meaningful to you. But when an exploration is replaced with constant pressure to be practical, people become efficient, responsible, educated, and yet strangely disconnected from themselves. This is why so many young adults feel lost after finishing school. For years, their identity was built around completing the next step, the next exam, the next degree, the next milestone. But once those steps are finished, the structure disappears, and suddenly the question returns. What now? The answer is rarely immediate, and that uncertainty can feel frightening. But there is another way to look at it. Maybe feeling lost is not a failure. Maybe it is the moment when your life finally becomes your responsibility. For the first time, you are no longer following instructions. You're deciding direction, and direction rarely appears overnight. It appears slowly, through experimentation, through revisiting the things that once made you curious, through trying things that may or may not work. The mistake many people make is believing that purpose must appear fully formed, like a lightning strike of clarity. But in reality, purpose often begins as something much smaller, a skill you enjoy improving, a challenge that excites you, a curiosity that refuses to disappear. And sometimes, the things we are told to ignore when we were younger are the exact clues pointing toward who we really are. Because the activities that once made you lose track of time, the things that once made you feel competitive, focused, and alive, those experiences were never meaningless. They were signals. Signals about how your mind works, what motivates you, what kind of challenges your brain enjoys solving. So perhaps the real question isn't, why do I feel like I have no purpose? The real question might be, when did I stop listening to the parts of myself that once felt alive? And maybe the answer to that question is where purpose begins again. Not by returning to the past exactly, but by remembering that the person you were before the expectations still exists somewhere inside you, waiting to be heard again.